Okay.
All right, here we go. Hello. Welcome to the That Is Not How I Remember It podcast. I am Mandy.
And I am Jenny.
As you can probably tell from our names, we spent a lot of our formative years in the 80s, and we both enjoy podcasts. So we are going to revisit some of our favorite 80s memories. The first one we're going to revisit is the book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume.
Yes, and we are actual Gen Xers doing this. So a lot of millennials have podcasts, and we thought it's time for some Gen X podcasts. Not that millennials don't do an awesome job, because they do. They've, helped my love of the podcast, but we're going to do some Gen X point of view.
Right. So we're starting with this book, which when I looked it up, I was surprised it was actually first published in 1970.
Yes.
I just assumed it was an 80s book because it meant so much to me in the 80s, but 1970, so it's 50 years old.
50 years old. And if you want to do math, which I don't like, but if you want to do math, then that would make Margaret 61.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, that's
Margaret. I wonder what she's up to now.
I don't know. I wonder if she still lives in New Jersey or...
Right? Oh, man.
I don't know.
Should look into that. This also, interestingly enough, is one of the American Library Association's most, always on the list of most 100 books frequently challenged. So because it hits that taboo subject of the menstruation.
Yes. I pulled up, I looked on Wikipedia, where everything is completely true.
Absolutely.
But it is a somewhat good source. And I thought I would read the little synopsis.
Oh, excellent.
They said. So, okay. Like you said, it's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is a 1970 book by Judy Blume, typically categorized as a young adult novel about a sixth grade girl who's grown up without a religious affiliation due to her parents' interfaith marriage. The novel explores her quest for a single religion while confronting typical issues faced by early adolescent girls going through puberty, such as buying her first bra and now this is a word that I have never heard of before in all my 40-some years, having her menarche, which is first period. Okay, I don't know why they use that word. Nobody uses that word. I've never heard it, but Wikipedia uses that word, menarche, menarche.
Never heard that
Greek,
word.
Meaning beginning. So
maybe we heard it in our fifth grade when we got pulled out of our fifth grade class for the Becoming a Woman talk, but I don't remember it.
We might have. And she's, and feeling attracted to certain boys. The novel has, like you said, frequently challenged since the 1980s for its frank discussions of sexual and religious topics. What Wikipedia says.
It's funny because when I remember it, I don't even remember the religious aspect of it. When I thought back on it, I remembered about her getting her period. I certainly remembered that famous quote, we must increase our bust,
Yes.
Right? But I did not, until I reread it, I did not remember the whole religious tension of her trying to figure out what she was, what she wanted to be, her parents, interreligion marriage that really sort of caused a lot of tension in the book.
Yes, that went over my head, the not talking to the grandparents.
Yes. Yeah. So that was kind of a shock for me. So, but I loved this book so much because I also moved, like Margaret, in fifth grade. I moved and I was starting a new school. And I had, like I said, got pulled out of my fifth grade class with all the girls to get that talk about becoming a woman. And so I remember reading this book like, oh, Margaret and I are living the same life.
One and the same.
Right? Except for that, I wasn't grappling with my religious beliefs at the time, but so she had a few other things on her plate.
Well, she and I were both only children, which I thought was cool because everybody else I knew seemed to have siblings. And then she, not having religion and me coming from a family that was like, quote, kind of Jewish, but more like have a piece of matzah and off you go, you know? And so I thought, I remember feeling like, so not everybody fits into, you know, a box. Just like, you know, she doesn't necessarily go to church, she doesn't go to synagogue, and neither did I. I went to both some of the time, but not very often. So I kind of, you know, felt akin to her in that way. But yeah, most of that went over my head.
Yeah. At the time.
I think I was more like she's my age, and here I will show you though. This is the cover of my book.
Oh, you've got the classic. Nice.
Yeah. My old book with like a 1970s dress and blonde hair. Her dress is orange and brown, and it has like the big collar, and on the front it says Margaret Simon, almost 12 and full of questions. Like when they used to write things on the book.
Mine has the tagline, growing up is tough, period.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
That is good.
So they have even updated the tagline with the covers.
They really did. And then inside my book, which, you know, Mandy can see, but I wrote my name really sloppily in pencil. And then there's a little sun on the corner, because that was really big, drawing suns out of a corner of a piece of paper.
Yes, I remember doing that. Yeah, doodling all over, you know, our Trapper Keepers and whatnot.
Yep, so, Trapper Keepers.
I love that you have your original book. I think that is so fun.
Yes, I found it last year or so. So I was excited, and I kept it. You know, some of the other books that I had, I was like, I don't know why I have this one or what is this one, but I was like, I think I screamed when I found this one. I was like, oh my gosh, because I just loved it. And I don't always read books over and over again, but this was one I read repeatedly.
Yes.
You know, it's very about to fall apart even now.
Yeah, so. I feel that same way. Like, I am not a big rereader. I figured there's so many books out there. I don't want to read. But I remember reading that book a lot as a kid, like just sort of like keeping it I don't know if it was on my bedside table, because I don't know that I wanted, like it felt a little scandalous to be reading it. But maybe like in the drawer next to my bedside table. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy that it's scandalous. And even today that it's, you know, like a challenged book, because every girl goes through these same. One of the things I was so surprised at when I reread it is how well it stood up, like how well it held its sort of meaning. And yes, every girl still goes through that sort of like that anxiety of, you know, getting their, what was it called? I don't know their first menstruation. Menarche. Their first menarche.
That's probably not even how you say it. Right? People will be like, that's not right.
Right. And then sort of like judging the other girls who have like, oh, you know, someone else is maturing a little bit faster and you want to fit in.
Right.
The one part that I laughed so heartedly at was when she found out, she couldn't wear socks on the first day of school. No one is wearing socks, right? Because I had a similar incident, the opposite. It was like big to wear multiple pairs of socks, right? And like you scrunched one down and you had one scrunched a little higher up. Like, and my mom was like, your shoes are not made for 2 pair of socks. Your feet are going to be so hot. Don't wear 2 pair of socks to school. I was like, no, I'm wearing 2 pair of socks to school. It's probably the same time where I wore like 3 polo shirts so I could pop all the collars.
Right. How weren't we so hot?
Well, I remember coming home from school and my feet hurt. They were so hot. I was like, maybe my mom knew something. Not that I would have ever admitted it to her, but I just thought that was so funny because I was like, I had a similar situation where the mom was like, no, wear your socks. You're going to have blisters on your feet. Wear your socks. And she was like, people are not wearing socks. I'm not wearing them.
And then she didn't care about that. She got blisters.
No. She stuck to it.
Kept going. I thought it was interesting when they moved to the new house they moved from New York City to suburban New Jersey, a town called Farbrook, I think. And a girl, Nancy, when she rang the doorbell, she goes, "We got your real estate sheet." And I was like, oh my God, what? Like, I don't remember that ever happening. I'm sure it did, but now you wouldn't just go around and pass out sheets with people's information on
information, their daughter's age. right? A name.
Here's where he works. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was a little strange too. I was like, did they really do that in the 70s and 80s? Because I moved several times. And I do remember, like, though, back then people would just sort of knock on your door. Oh, see your new neighbors, and she just straight went over to her. I was like, I don't know, as a parent, I'd be like, yeah, go over to that person. I don't have any idea who they are, and wear their bathing suit and hang out for the day.
Right. Have fun.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I probably, oh, great, you have a friend. Go. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right. There's so much change. It is nice that it was kind of fun that she made a friend right away.
Yes. And then I also thought it was sort of funny that they arranged the 6th grade at her school by age, which
yes, by birthdays.
Did my kindergarten was arranged by age. The younger kids went in the morning because I guess they got cranky in the afternoon. But also the deadline was December 1st. So a lot of us Novembers went, in the morning, and then the older kids went in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But that was the only time.
Yeah, I had never heard of that before, but I thought, well, it kind of makes sense, especially for younger kids, right?
Yeah.
Because, if you were born in May, you're certainly, in many cases, not all cases, but going to be more mature than a kid, who is born, half a year later.
Right. And so, no, I just remember that I thought that she was lucky for having a friend come over and, like, taking her under her wing.
Yeah.
And just making it out like, okay, friend, same class, woohoo. That's amazing.
Right? I feel like some of that sort of innocence of childhood we don't necessarily have anymore because of, we watch, so many Datelines or, or the kids are on their phones or, on, the internet or playing games. And so they're not just like out in the neighborhood necessarily all the time, just sort of, oh, hey, you want to be my friend? Come on over. So I thought that was a very sweet thing as well.
It was cute. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I also say that I loved that the names of the products, I don't know if they changed the names because I had a newer book than when you had it, but that they were Teenage Softies.
Yeah.
And Private Lady Sanitary Supplies. And I said, from this day forward, I only ever want to purchase Private Lady Sanitary Supplies. Maybe we could have them sponsor our podcast.
We can see. Yes.
That is not how I remember it. Sponsored by Private Lady Sanitary Supplies.
Yeah, and it's private. Like, you can't talk about it. It's, although for 1970, I thought it was pretty interesting that she was really open. Margaret was, in Nancy when she got it. They were open with their mothers. It wasn't like they talked a lot about it. There was a big support of it. It wasn't something that was to be ashamed of, which I thought was really great because, however many million girls read this book, you don't want to make them feel ashamed of it.
No. And just say that it's normal, like it's not something to be scared of. It's a normal thing that happens, and to be able to go talk to your mom. I also thought it was really cool that when this was written in 1970, that the mom calls the drugstore because the mom only had tampons, and so she wanted pads for her daughter.
And they delivered them?
I was like, there was Uber. This was like Uber in the 1970s.
Right.
Who knew?
I would have been like, Mom, don't call them. Dude, I know. Let's just go get them. I don't want somebody picking them out and knowing that.
Right? I know.
That they're coming to my house with pets and a belt, which that whole thing. I looked online and I'm like, I don't understand how this belt thing works.
And see, because I had the newer copy, we had moved to a removable paper liner. We didn't have the belt anymore. And I knew as I was reading it, I'm like, I think that this has been updated because I think that probably when this was published in 1970, it was still the belt, which again, like you, I don't understand the engineering of that. And I just want to shout out to all those ladies in the 70s who had to wear those because that just, it's, enough.
I know. I was looking online, and then so Margaret, and when they go to the store and they get them, when she got it with her friend before she actually got it, and she's like, I want the pink belt because it's cute, and then I'm looking it up, and trying to figure out how it attaches and then it stays put. And I couldn't quite, figure it out, but it was interesting to try and learn. I mean, cause, and then they also said, the lady in the class was like, don't wear a tampon. That's for older people.
Right.
And now the kids,
because
I have a teenage daughter. It's not looked down upon.
It's not frowned upon any longer. I felt that tension of when they were in the store and they were buying them. As I said, I think I was well into my 20s before I was like comfortable going in or buying it, especially if there was like a cute boy ringing up at the register. Oh no. I felt that tension of like, oh my gosh, they saw the boy as the cashier and they're like, we're not buying these. And they shoved them back on the shelf until the lady was like, can I help you?
Yeah.
I thought that was really written well in terms of like, yes, that anxiety that, and again, it's why it is such a taboo subject, every woman has to deal with it at some point, but to sort of feel that like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing when it shouldn't be. But
and even now, like when I go to the store, if I'm getting them, every time I put one in my cart or whatever, I run into somebody I know. And it shouldn't bother me but I'm like, tampons today. I wonder who I'll run into.
That does seem to be the case, right? Anytime you're buying something like, personal hygiene wise, you're like, oh, great. Our
family is not feeling well today, thus the Imodium. Yeah. So, or whatever.
So happy to run into the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I also thought about when the one teacher, I don't know if you spend nearly as much time on TikTok as I embarrassingly do. When the lady was like, "Ooh, tampons, no, those are for older ladies." I could not get the 100 tampon song out of my head. Have you heard this song?
Yeah.
Yes. And so I just kept, anytime anyone mentioned tampon, I was singing the 100 tampons song. If anyone hasn't heard of it, you can look it up on TikTok about how they sent the first woman astronaut to space for 6 days, and they sent with her 100 tampons, and they weren't sure if it would be enough. and again, it's like, oh my goodness, how are we like? So it's so like, ooh, we don't talk about it.
Just take them and
take them and be quiet. Oh, we hope it's good. And I was trying to explain it to my own teenager, like, because I have a boy, and I was like, it would be like saying, you're going on a trip for 6 days. I'm going to send you with 50 pair of underwear. You good with that? Is that enough? Are you good? I was like, so it was a little overreach,
Yeah.
But I suppose you can never be too prepared, right?
You can't.
Things have gone wrong with the space program, so
that's why it's kind of stopping. It's after the tampon incident. It's just like, oh. We don't know.
Right. Let's just give this to Elon Musk to figure out.
And then, I also thought, a big part of it, obviously the title of the book is she's talking to God every night and praying for things. And even though she doesn't necessarily know where she falls on the religious spectrum, she does believe in God. And I like the quote her mother said, "My mother says God is a nice idea. He belongs to everybody." And I thought that was a lovely comment, and if you want to talk to him, you talk to him, and, you have your own relationship with him as you want to. And so she, prayed to him about that. But then, as an 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old girl, then she would also pray about developing and her period. And I definitely didn't pray for those things, probably because I was too shy to do it. I'm like, okay, I'll just keep this in my head.
I vividly recall praying for things like wanting certain boys to like me, or like, oh, please just let me get those Guess jeans for, like if I could just get those for my birthday, I'll be so happy. So I think maybe, my prayers were a little bit more materialistic at times. I was a little like Margaret and like, oh, please let this happen for me.
Yeah. Oh, no, I had the Guess jeans prayer as well.
Yeah. Yes. They were big. They were important.
They were big. I got a pair from a store called the Style Shop. So yes.
These were significant touchstones in our lives.
Yes, I recall it.
I also loved when their first friend got her period and they said, "Did it make you feel older?" And her response was, "Naturally." Naturally. It made her feel older. I was like, yeah, naturally. I thought, yeah, that's how I feel every month. Naturally. I'm not groaning like, ugh. Naturally. So
here it is again.
Right? Yes. To go back to what you just said about the religion, though, I sort of really appreciated it more as an adult. Her questioning, her going to the synagogue with her grandmother, her going to, the Presbyterian church? Was it Presbyterian church with her friend? Her going into the Catholic church for, a hot minute. But so I sort of appreciated that. And as an 11-year-old, to sort of be really sort of thinking about those things and, what she believed. And I thought that was really very mature of her.
Yeah, it was really very wise, especially even though I loved her grandma. Was it Sylvia? That grandma sounded super fun.
Yes.
Like took her to Lincoln Center and just like sometimes, a teensy bit overbearing and was like, yes, I knew you were going to be Jewish, but Margaret was like, what? No, I don't know. But she was a good support.
Yes, she was.
For Margaret. Yeah.
She was. Oh, that whole grandparent situation. I'm still mad at the mom.
I don't remember that other grandparents when I read it originally.
No, but the other grandparents just randomly, after not talking to them for 14 years, randomly they're going to decide to show up at their house. And the mother cancels Margaret's spring break trip to visit her grandmother. I mean, she was going to fly on a plane in the 70s. Okay, that was like so exciting, right? Yeah. And her mom just canceled it because she's like, oh, my parents are coming into town. We haven't talked to them for 14 years. I'd be like, no, maybe you can work out a time with me. You don't just tell me when you're going to show up.
Yeah, sorry, Margaret won't be here, but you're free to visit on your own.
Oh, yeah. And Margaret handled it so much better than I was. I would have been such a stinker the entire time.
And if it happened to me today, I would have been really mad about
it. Absolutely. I was still mad at her mom. Yeah. And then I was a little bit like, the other grandparents kind of like calling each other mother and father. I want to make sure that her mother's maiden name wasn't Pence. I don't know. So I was like, they were calling themselves mother and father. I said that. So I wonder
where it all happened.
Yes, I just that made me chuckle, but I was so mad about that situation. And then that the grandparents just sort of up and left. They didn't even stay the week.
Right. And the dad's like, they were going to New York anyway. And
yeah,
that was bad. But God bless the Simon grandma who came all the way from Florida.
Right. I know. I hope she got married to that cute little man that she met in Florida. How supportive when she said, I'm flying back to New Jersey from Florida in April. I'm going to check in on my granddaughter. And he's like, okay, I'll go.
Okay, let's go.
He sounds like a good sport.
He was. I liked him a lot. What else you got?
There were just some other things that I just loved in the story about how she was practicing wearing when she got the pads. She was practicing wearing them. And then she was going to sleep in it. But then she literally said, I didn't want to sleep in it because if there was a fire, my secret would be discovered. I literally laughed out loud thinking, I was like, yes, that is exactly what the firemen is. That's if they come to put out a fire at a house, they're going to be like, oh, she's wearing a sanitary napkin. But those are the things you thought when you were like 11 and 12 years old, right? Everyone's going to know that I, have this thing going on. So,
yeah. And then I guess we should mention the bra shopping at Lord and Taylor.
Oh, yes.
Was Lord and Taylor mentioned in your book still?
No, it was a different store in mine.
Okay, so they went to Lord and Taylor, and as she said, she wore a dress and loafers with no socks and 3 Band-Aids. So
right, because right, absolutely
dressed up for Lord and Taylor and the bra shopping.
Right, and again, she ran into someone she knew who was also buying bras, right? But they were both so like, oh, I've seen someone I know, and I'm buying bras. This is so awkward.
I don't want to see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when asked what one she wanted, she said and again, words I don't understand, Dacron was in my book, and I had to look that up. It's like a softer synthetic fabric that apparently bras, it's still used today. I was surprised, but that was the one she wanted because it was the most comfortable. And still, I'm just like, I don't know that word. Apparently,
that was the same in my version too. And again, I didn't know what it was, but I was just like, oh, I bet it's like some, like sort of like softer fabric or something. So
yeah,
lots of big things going on in that 11 to 12-year-old age range for Margaret.
Mm-hmm. And the square dance,
the big square dance. They had quite a few little all school activities at that school.
They did, and they were excited about it. But I remember my daughter doing square dancing in middle school and not being really thinking it was so
right
wonderful. I don't think they had an actual square dance,
right?
They did do it in gym.
Yeah.
I don't know why that unit is kept up. I'm not sure.
Well, here's a little bit of trivia for you. In our state, square dancing is the state dance. So maybe that's why it's still in the state curriculum for PE.
Okay, it has to be. I did not know it was the state dance.
See?
I didn't know we had a state dance.
Well, get on it. Start practicing your square dancing. We'll have a hoedown here once this pandemic lifts.
Once COVID's over, we're going to have a square dance. Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
Get your ruffle skirts out. Well, I loved the book. I loved revisiting it. It was, I remember it fondly, and rereading it just made me think like even more highly of it because it just really did hold up. Yeah. I didn't read it and roll my eyes and groan and think, oh my gosh, I thought this was great. I just thought, wow, how impressive for her to have written something 50 years ago that's still like a modern, fiction that still holds up.
Right. I didn't cringe. Like,
right.
I just didn't go, ugh. And even the boy-girl party, and they played, spin the bottle and the closet game. It was done really sweetly and innocently. Yeah. And I remember rooting. I'm like, I hope she gets Philip Leroy or Leroy or whatever his last name is. And then she did. And I was like, yes.
And that, like, I remember thinking, oh, Philip Leroy. And now as I read it as an adult, I was like,
no, I don't like him.
Philip Leroy. No, thank you. No, thank you.
He seemed obnoxious and like just wanted to follow the crowd. And
yes, and so cocky. And I was like, oh, stop. And Laura Danker, I was like, oh, poor Laura Danker.
Poor Laura. Yeah.
Just developed earlier than everyone else, and then she was ostracized because of it.
I know. And, it's like apparently she didn't live in a decade where you could just wear big sweatshirts.
Right. She didn't live in COVID times.
No. And,
poor girl.
I felt so bad for her. And it still shows you that, kids obviously don't change, but that, they singled her out. And then Margaret's in this nice little group of girls, who are nice a little bit, but not when it comes to, someone who's different than them. And then she's like making up, she's like, oh, did you see how Mr. Benedict looked at her? And I'm just like, oh, you cannot say that now, like.
Yeah, that was a little cringy. Like, I was like, oh gosh. Yeah, that was the only part I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I did not know, because I've never read it, that she then Judy Blume later on wrote a male perspective book called Then Again, Maybe I Won't. Have you read that one?
I did read it, and I remember a part where there's like binoculars involved, and even as a child, I was like, I did not like that. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to read that one too. But
I might have to put that on our list.
Yeah, that was, even as a kid, I was like, I think there's a red flag here.
All right. Yes, I think we must revisit it. But if you think of other books, if you're listening to our initial podcast here and you think of other books that you think we should read, let us know. We have an Instagram account at Not How I Remember It, and a Gmail at nothowirememberit@gmail.com. We would love to hear your ideas because we had so much fun rereading this that we are anxious to read others.
Yes, thank you for joining us. We had a really fun time.
Right? We don't have a fun catchphrase yet.
No, but if you have one, send it in.
Right. Stay tuned.
Think of one.
Stay tuned. We might get one soon. So thanks for joining us. We will read another book soon from our childhood and discuss it. But I think this was just the best book to start with because it really held up, and I read it from a different perspective of, as an adult woman to really sort of appreciate a lot of the things that she went through at 11 and 12.
Yeah. And we're still avid readers today, so keep reading.
Yes, absolutely. And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
My God, I've become my mother.
I dare you. Maybe that's our next podcast.
Yeah.
How do you program the VCR?
The commercial. My phone doesn't have it. Yes, it does.
It does.